Right now, as you hear these words, something is moving in absolute darkness 11 kilometers beneath the water's surface, and we have no idea what it is. Have you ever wondered why we know more about the surface of Mars than the floor of our own oceans? This isn't a metaphor, it's literal fact. We've mapped the red planet with resolution down to several meters, sent rovers there, studied every rock. Meanwhile, 80% of Earth's ocean floor has never been mapped, observed, or explored by humans. 80%. Think about that. 4/5 of the largest part of our planet remains an absolute mystery. Oceans cover 71% of Earth's surface. Average depth is 3.68 kilometers. Total water volume approaches 1.5 billion cubic kilometers. This is so immense that the human brain physically cannot comprehend such scale. Try imagining an Olympic swimming pool. Now picture a billion such pools. Now multiply by 1,000. You're still nowhere close to the real volume of the ocean. And here's what's truly disturbing. In this unimaginable space, things are happening that we haven't the slightest clue about. Let's start with a specific example that will make you question everything you thought you knew about our planet. In 1997, a network of hydrophones installed by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration across the Pacific Ocean detected a sound. An unusual sound. Something so loud it was heard by sensors located over 5,000 kilometers apart. They called it the bloop. Imagine a low-frequency ultrasound rising in pitch over approximately 1 minute. The frequency profile matched a biological source. This wasn't the sound of an underwater volcano, nor the crack of breaking ice, nor the noise of a submarine. Computer analysis showed a pattern characteristic of a living creature. But here's the problem. To produce sound of such volume, the creature would need to be significantly larger than any known animal on Earth. The blue whale, the largest animal that has ever lived on our planet, larger than any dinosaur, reaches lengths of about 30 meters and weights up to 200 tons. Its call can be heard at distances up to 1,600 kilometers. That's impressive. But the bloop was heard at a distance more than 3 times greater and was significantly louder. What could have produced such a sound? NOAA initially couldn't explain it. For years, researchers debated. Some suggested unknown geological processes. Others cautiously hinted at the possibility of a very large unknown animal. Officially, in 2005, NOAA stated the sound was most likely caused by an ice quake, the fracturing of a glacier in Antarctica. Sounds reasonable, right? Problem solved. Sleep easy. But here's where it gets interesting. A number of independent acoustic experts pointed out inconsistencies in this explanation. The frequency profile of the bloop didn't completely match known icequake sounds. Moreover, the source of the sound was triangulated to a region in the southern Pacific Ocean known as Point Nemo, the most remote point from land on the planet, located approximately 21,887 kilometers from the nearest shores. Point Nemo is called the oceanic pole of inaccessibility. It's literally the most isolated place on Earth. The nearest humans to it are usually on the International Space Station flying overhead, because it's closer than any person on land or sea. This is the place where countries dump decommissioned spacecraft, allowing them to burn up and fall into the ocean where they won't harm anyone. It's deep, very deep, and virtually unexplored. So what really produced the bloop? We still don't know for certain. And this is just one sound. One event for 1 minute in 1 year. The hydrophone network has recorded numerous other strange sounds over decades. Upsweep, a slowly pulsating sound continuing for decades. Whistle, a sharp whistle of unknown origin. Julia, a sound very similar to biological, but too loud for any known animal. The ocean is full of sounds we cannot explain. And this is only what we accidentally hear through a limited number of sensors. What's happening in that 80% of the ocean where we have no sensors at all? Now let's talk about depth, not abstractly but specifically. What happens to you when you descend? At 10 meters depth, water pressure is approximately 2 atmospheres, twice what it is at the surface. This is the depth where ordinary divers go. Everything seems normal, though your body is already experiencing significant pressure. At 100 meters, 11 atmospheres. This is the limit for technical diving with special gas mixtures. Nitrogen narcosis becomes a serious problem. People start behaving strangely, as if drunk, making irrational decisions. Some remove their regulators, thinking they can breathe water. At 300 meters, about 31 atmospheres. This is the approximate limit for the deepest human dives in regular suits. The pressure is so great that every square centimeter of your body experiences a load of about 31 kilograms. At 1,000 meters, 101 atmospheres. This is the depth where what oceanographers call the bathypelagic zone or midnight zone begins. Here is absolute darkness. No sunlight penetrates to this depth. Temperature around 4 degrees Celsius. Pressure would crush an unprotected human instantly. At 4,000 meters, the average ocean depth, pressure is about 400 atmospheres. That's 400 kilograms on every square centimeter. Imagine an adult man standing on your fingernail. Now imagine 400 such men standing on every square centimeter of your body simultaneously. And now, the most interesting part. At a depth of 11,304 meters in the Mariana Trench, in a place called Challenger Deep, pressure reaches approximately 1,100 atmospheres. That's more than 1,000 kilograms per square centimeter. At this depth, lead flows like water. Wood compresses to the density of stone, and creatures live there. Not just survive, thrive. In 1960, oceanauts Don Walsh and engineer Jacques Piccard descended into Challenger Deep in the bathyscaphe Trieste. It was the first and at that time only manned dive to the bottom of the ocean's deepest point. They spent only 20 minutes on the bottom. The viewport window cracked from the pressure and they had to ascend urgently. But in those 20 minutes, they saw something that overturned scientific understanding of life. They saw a fish. Flat, pale, but definitely a fish, swimming along the bottom at a depth where, according to theories existing then, complex life couldn't exist. The next manned dive to Challenger Deep happened only in 2012, 52 years later, when director James Cameron made a solo dive in the specially designed bathyscaphe Deep Sea Challenger. He spent several hours on the bottom, collecting samples and shooting video. What did he see? A desolate landscape covered with fine gray silt. No visible life in the field of view. Absolute silence. Cold. Darkness so complete that the only light came from his own spotlights. But here's what's interesting. Analysis of the collected silt showed it full of microbial life. Billions of bacteria per gram of sediment. And in the water samples were found traces of organic compounds and excrement of large animals. This means that there, in the darkness, outside the field of view of cameras, creatures live, feed, reproduce, die, create ecosystems. Since 2019, several more dives have been made. In 2019, American investor and explorer Victor Vescovo made a record dive, reaching a depth of 10,927 meters. He found a plastic bag and candy wrapper on the bottom. Even the deepest point on the planet hasn't escaped human pollution. But he also discovered new species of amphipods, tiny crustaceans similar to shrimp, but adapted to extreme pressure. Their bodies contain special compounds called piezolites that counteract the compression of cell membranes under pressure. These are organisms for which 1,100 atmospheres is normal habitat. If you brought one of them to the surface quickly, it would literally explode. Cells would rupture from the drop in pressure. They can no more live in our world than we in theirs. So let's calculate. Humans have visited the ocean's deepest point only a few times, spending there a total of several hours. They explored an area equivalent to several football fields. The Mariana Trench is about 2,550 kilometers long and average width 69 kilometers. That's an area of approximately 176,000 square kilometers. We've explored a negligible fraction of a percent of this, and this is only one trench. Ocean trenches, places where depth exceeds 6,000 meters, number in the dozens around the world. What lives in the remaining 99.99%? Let's now talk about bioluminescence, because this will open a completely new dimension of how strange the deep-sea world is. At depths below 1,000 meters, sunlight doesn't exist. This isn't just the darkness of night when eyes adapt. This is complete, absolute absence of light. In such conditions, vision in the usual sense is useless. And yet, if you could somehow be there, protected from pressure and with an oxygen source, turned off all your lights and let your eyes adapt for an hour, you would see light. Flickering, ghostly, otherworldly light. About 90% of deep-sea creatures are capable of producing their own light through bioluminescence. 90%. This isn't a rare feature, it's the norm. They glow blue, green, sometimes red. Some use photophores, special luminous organs to attract prey. Others for communication. Still others for camouflage, illuminating their ventral side to match the faint light from above and become invisible to predators below. Anglerfish are probably the most famous. Females have a bioluminescent lure dangling in front of their huge mouths. In the darkness, other fish see only the glowing point, swim toward it, and disappear into the predator's maw with backward-pointing teeth from which escape is impossible. But there are stranger creatures. The giant squid Architeuthis dux can reach lengths up to 13 meters. It has the largest eyes in the animal kingdom, up to 30 centimeters in diameter, the size of a football. Why such huge eyes in complete darkness? To see bioluminescence. In the ocean, an invisible war of light and shadow is taking place. Predators glow to hunt. Prey emit flashes of light to blind attackers or attract the attention of larger predators to their opponent. Some creatures squirt bioluminescent slime onto an attacker, marking it with a glowing spot, turning the hunter into a target. This is a world where light is a weapon, a tool, a language. And now think. We know about this only because sometimes these creatures get caught in our deep-sea nets or trawls. We pull them from their natural environment, and they die almost instantly from pressure drop and temperature shock. We study dead bodies, trying to understand how they lived. It's like aliens trying to understand human culture by studying corpses they accidentally collected. They might learn about our anatomy, but would they understand how we live, what we feel, how we communicate? There's a suspicion among marine biologists, unofficial because proving it is impossible, that we've seen only the most primitive, most unlucky deep-sea inhabitants. Those smart or cautious enough avoid our nets and cameras. How intelligent can deep-sea creatures be? Let's talk about cephalopods, because they shatter all our ideas about intelligence. Octopuses, squid, and cuttlefish developed intelligence independently from vertebrates. Our last common ancestor lived about 600 million years ago and was a simple worm-like creature. Since then, evolution went two radically different paths. We have a centralized brain in the skull, protected by bone. 2/3 of our neurons are in the head. An octopus has 2/3 of its neurons in its arms. Its brain is distributed. Each arm can make decisions independently, solve problems, explore the environment without waiting for commands from the center. Octopuses solve complex puzzles, open jars with screw lids, navigate mazes, recognize individual humans, and remember those who were unfriendly to them. In one famous case, an octopus in an aquarium regularly escaped at night from its tank, crawled to a neighboring one, ate the fish, and returned. Guards couldn't figure out for weeks where the fish were disappearing until they installed cameras. These are creatures with lifespans of only 1 to 2 years. Imagine what intelligence could develop if they lived longer and had the ability to pass knowledge through generations. And now think. These are shallow water octopuses, ones we can study in laboratories. What about their deep-sea relatives? The Dumbo octopus, living at depths up to 7,000 meters, is the deepest known octopus. Named for its ear-like fins, we know very little about it. Most observations are made by underwater drones that glimpse it in the darkness. Giant squid are caught in nets sometimes, but living ones in their natural habitat have been seen only a few times. The first video of a living giant squid in its natural habitat was shot only in 2012 by Japanese researchers at a depth of about 900 meters. And the colossal squid Misonicotuthis hamiltoni, even larger, up to 14 meters and weighing up to 750 kilograms, has never been filmed alive. We have only dead specimens caught in fishing nets or found in the stomachs of sperm whales. Sperm whales. Here's who really knows the depths. These animals dive to depths over 2,000 meters regularly, staying underwater up to 90 minutes. They hunt in complete darkness using echolocation, producing the most powerful biological sounds on Earth, up to 230 decibels, loud enough to stun or even kill prey with a sound wave. What do they see down there? When we find dead sperm whales washed ashore and open them, in the stomach we find squid beaks, thousands of beaks. Some belong to known species, but many don't match any described species. This means that at the depths where sperm whales hunt, there exist squid species we've never seen, never described, never classified. We know about them only from body parts found in predator stomachs. How many more species exist at depths where sperm whales don't dive? At 4,000, 6,000, 10,000 meters. Every deep-sea expedition, every dive of an underwater drone discovers new species. Not occasionally, not rarely, every time. Biologists estimate we've described less than 10% of all species living in the ocean. Some believe the real figure is closer to 1%. This means 90 to 99% of marine creatures are unknown to science. Let's stop for a second and think about the scale of this ignorance. We live on a planet where most life is unknown to us, where most of the surface is hidden underwater that we cannot see, cannot explore without extremely expensive technology. And in this unexplored zone, things are happening that we're only beginning to suspect. In 1977, a group of scientists on the research vessel Alvin made a discovery that fundamentally changed our understanding of life on Earth. They descended to the Galapagos Rift, an underwater mountain chain, at a depth of about 2,500 meters, studying geological activity. And there, in absolute darkness, in a place where, according to all existing theories, life couldn't exist, they discovered a garden. Not a metaphorical garden, a real oasis of life. From cracks in the ocean floor erupted superheated water, heated by magma beneath Earth's crust. Water temperature reached 400 degrees Celsius, but under pressure of 250 atmospheres, it didn't boil, but remained liquid. This water was saturated with minerals and chemical substances raised from the planet's depths. Hydrogen sulfide, methane, iron, manganese. And around these hydrothermal vents, black smokers as they came to be called because of the dark mineral clouds erupting from them, life thrived. Giant tube worms, Riftia pachyptilla, up to 2.4 meters long, with bright red plumes at their ends. They have no mouth, no digestive system. They don't eat in the usual sense. Instead, inside their bodies live billions of bacteria, symbionts. These bacteria use chemical energy from hydrogen sulfide erupting from the vents to produce organic matter from inorganic, a process called chemosynthesis. The worms receive nutrition from the bacteria. The bacteria receive a habitat and constant flow of hydrogen sulfide that the worm absorbs with its plumes. This is an ecosystem that doesn't depend on sunlight. All life on Earth's surface that we knew until this moment was based on photosynthesis. Plants and algae capture energy from the sun, produce organic matter. Herbivores eat plants. Predators eat herbivores. The entire food chain begins with sunlight. But on the ocean floor, in complete darkness, exists an alternative biosphere. Life, based not on the energy of the star above us, but on the energy of the planet beneath us. Around the hydrothermal vents, researchers found blind white crabs covered with bristles that cultivate bacteria on their bodies. Mollusks with shells covered in iron sulfides, natural armor. Shrimp with light-sensitive organs on their backs, capable of seeing faint infrared radiation from hot water. It was like discovering a completely different planet without leaving Earth. The discovery of hydrothermal vents had profound consequences for astrobiology. If life can exist in such extreme conditions on Earth, where else might it exist? Europa, Jupiter's moon, has an ice crust 15 to 25 kilometers thick, beneath which lies a global ocean of liquid water, possibly up to 100 kilometers deep. This ocean is heated by tidal forces. Gravitational interaction with Jupiter constantly squeezes and stretches the moon's interior, generating heat. It's quite likely that on the floor of Europa's ocean, there are hydrothermal vents, exactly like on Earth. And if they're there, why wouldn't there be life? Enceladus, Saturn's moon, is even more intriguing. The Cassini spacecraft discovered geysers erupting from its south pole, ejecting water into space. Analysis of these plumes showed the presence of organic molecules, salt, and most interestingly, molecular hydrogen. Hydrogen is produced when hot water reacts with rock on the ocean floor. Its presence strongly suggests active hydrothermal vents beneath Enceladus's icy crust. We can literally taste the ocean of an alien world without landing on it. And this ocean has a chemical composition compatible with life. But let's return to our oceans, because the discovery of hydrothermal vents was only the beginning. Since 1977, we've discovered hundreds of such vents around the world. They exist along mid-ocean ridges, underwater mountain chains where tectonic plates diverge and new ocean crust forms from rising magma. Each vent has its own unique ecosystem. Species living at vents in the Pacific differ from species in the Atlantic. Some vents are dominated by tube worms, others by mollusks, still others by dense mats of bacteria covering the floor. But here's what's really strange. These ecosystems are isolated from each other by distances of hundreds or thousands of kilometers of open ocean. Vents are short-lived by geological standards. Each is active only a few decades or hundreds of years before tectonic activity shifts and it cools. How do species spread between vents? How does a tube worm larva living at one vent find a new vent, possibly thousands of kilometers away, before its home vent dies? We don't know. Larvae drift in cold, dark water, possibly for years, seeking chemical signals of a new vent. Most probably die, but some somehow succeed. It's the underwater equivalent of islands in the sky, oases of life separated by deserts where survival requires incredible luck and endurance. And this is what we know. What don't we know? In 2005, researchers discovered another type of hydrothermal system, completely different from black smokers. They called this place Lost City. Lost City is in the Atlantic Ocean, on an underwater mountain approximately 800 meters below the surface. But this isn't a volcanic system. The vents here are caused by chemical reaction between seawater and mantle rocks raised to the ocean floor. Water temperature here is only 40 to 90 degrees Celsius, not 400. The chemistry is completely different, alkaline rather than acidic, and the structures look like a city. Towers of calcium carbonate, white, reaching heights up to 60 meters, rise from the floor. Some have regular geometric shapes, walls, corners, terraces. When researchers first saw this in the light of underwater vehicle spotlights, they momentarily thought they'd found ruins. Of course, these aren't ruins. They're mineral formations created by specific geochemical processes. But they demonstrate how strange natural structures can be. How easy it is to mistake an unusual geological formation for something artificial. Lost City has existed, by estimates, for 120,000 years, possibly longer. It's the longest living hydrothermal system known, and life here thrives. Microbes cover every surface. They produce methane in huge quantities through metabolic processes. Some astrobiologists believe systems like Lost City, not black smokers, could have been the site of life's origin on Earth. Alkaline vents create natural chemical gradients and mineral structures that could have served as the first cells, concentrating organic molecules and allowing the first metabolic reactions to occur. If this is true, life began on the ocean floor, in darkness, feeding on the planet's chemical energy. Only later, when primitive organisms accidentally developed the ability to use sunlight, did life rise to the surface and fill the illuminated waters and land. We, terrestrial creatures basking in sunlight, may be descendants of deep-sea creatures that once lived in eternal night. And here's what makes you think. If life originated in the ocean, possibly at hydrothermal vents, how many times did this happen? Once, from which all life on Earth descended? Or many times, creating separate trees of life, most of which went extinct, leaving only one? Or perhaps not all went extinct. There's a speculative, very speculative idea in biology called the shadow biosphere. The suggestion that a second biosphere might exist on Earth based on different biochemistry unrelated to known life. All known organisms use DNA or RNA in viruses for storing genetic information, the same amino acids for building proteins, the same universal biochemistry. This points to common origin. We're all descendants of one ancestor that lived about 4 billion years ago. But what if somewhere in an isolated environment there exist organisms using different molecules, a different genetic code, a completely different approach to life? We wouldn't recognize them. Our methods of detecting life are based on searching for DNA, specific proteins, certain metabolic processes. If something uses fundamentally different chemistry, our tests wouldn't detect it. Where could such shadow life hide? The most likely place is deep beneath the ocean floor, in the rocks of Earth's crust, feeding on chemical reactions between minerals and water. An environment so extreme and isolated that we barely explore it, or in the deepest ocean trenches, where conditions are so different from the rest of the planet that evolution could have taken a completely different path. This is pure speculation, of course. There's no compelling evidence of a shadow biosphere. But absence of evidence, you know how that phrase ends. Let's now talk about creatures that challenge our ideas about possible sizes of life. The largest animal on Earth is the blue whale, up to 30 meters and 200 tons. Impressive, but this isn't the limit for life in the ocean. The longest known organism isn't a whale, not a giant squid. It's a siphonophore, a colonial creature consisting of thousands of specialized zooids working together as a single organism. In 2020, researchers off the coast of Australia discovered a siphonophore of the genus Apolemia, about 47 meters long. 47. Longer than a blue whale. Longer than most buildings are tall. This isn't a single creature in the usual sense. It's a colony. Each zooid performs a specific function, some for swimming, some for feeding, some for reproduction, some for defense. Together they form something resembling a giant, transparent spiral drifting in the water column. And here's what's frightening. This specimen was discovered at a depth of only 600 meters, not in abyssal zones, in relatively accessible water. It was found only because they were specifically looking with a remotely operated vehicle. How many more such creatures drift in the depths, invisible, unknown? Jellyfish can grow to huge sizes. The lion's mane jellyfish has a bell up to 2 meters in diameter and tentacles up to 37 meters long. The giant Antarctic jellyfish is even larger. But the strangest thing isn't their size, but their nature. Jellyfish are 95% water. They have no brain, no blood, no heart. Just a gelatinous mass with a nerve net complex enough to coordinate movements and react to stimuli. They've existed for over 500 million years, practically unchanged, surviving all mass extinctions. And in recent decades, their populations are exploding. Climate change, overfishing, ocean pollution, all this creates conditions favorable for jellyfish. They reproduce faster, live longer, capture ecological niches left by fish. Some biologists speak of jellification of the oceans, a future where fish disappear and jellyfish dominate. An ocean returned to a state similar to Precambrian times, when gelatinous creatures ruled the seas. This isn't science fiction. It's a real trend being observed right now. But back to sizes. There are organisms even larger than siphonophores, but they're not animals. The largest organism on Earth by area is the fungus Armillaria ostoyae in Oregon, USA, covering about 965 hectares. But that's a terrestrial organism. In the ocean, the equivalent is bacterial mats and microbial colonies stretching for kilometers across the ocean floor. Individual cells, but genetically identical, functioning as a single whole. And there's something even stranger. In some parts of the ocean, water contains marine snow, a constant rain of organic particles falling from the surface. Dead plankton, excrement, fragments of larger organisms. These particles slowly sink, sometimes for weeks or months before reaching the bottom. And along the way, they stick together, forming increasingly large aggregates. Some reach the size of a football or larger. They're called marine snow, but that's not quite accurate. It's more like underwater icebergs of organic matter. Inside and on the surface of these aggregates live millions of bacteria, protists, tiny crustaceans. Each aggregate is a mini ecosystem drifting downward. And then something amazing happens. Sometimes these aggregates reach critical mass and start sinking faster. They pull surrounding water with them, creating a downward current. Oceanographers discovered these currents by accident. Underwater vehicles drifting at mid-depth suddenly started descending, pulled by an invisible force. At first, they thought it was technical malfunction. Then they realized it's the ocean moving within itself. These downward currents transport huge amounts of organic material and oxygen from the surface to the depths, feeding deep-sea ecosystems. Without them, life in abyssal zones would be much more sparse. But here's what's intriguing. The currents are unpredictable. They form sporadically in different places. And when they form, they can transport not only organics downward, but living creatures. A shallow water fish caught in such a current would be carried to depths where pressure would crush it. But what if some organisms adapted to use these currents for migration, descending quickly, avoiding the need to adapt to gradual pressure changes? This is pure speculation, but the ocean is full of phenomena we're only beginning to understand. Every answer spawns 10 new questions. Now let's talk about what should really keep you awake at night. About creatures so alien to our experience that they seem like visitors from another planet. In 2007, biologists studying water samples from the Mediterranean Sea discovered something impossible. Microscopic creatures living in sediments at a depth of 3,500 meters, where there's no oxygen at all. This in itself isn't surprising. Anaerobic bacteria have been known for a long time, but these weren't bacteria. These were multicellular animals. Tiny, about a millimeter long, but with a nervous system, muscles, digestive tract. Real animals living in an environment without oxygen. They were named Loricifera, and they overturned one of biology's fundamental axioms. All multicellular animals need oxygen to survive. Turns out, no. These creatures have modified mitochondria, organelles that in all other animals use oxygen to produce energy. But in Loricifera, mitochondria transformed into hydrogenosomes, using a completely different metabolic pathway, producing hydrogen instead of carbon dioxide. This evolutionary adaptation is so radical that scientists for decades considered it impossible for complex life. Where else do these creatures live? We found them in one place, in one type of sediment. But oxygen-free zones exist throughout the ocean, places where water circulation is minimal, where all oxygen is consumed by bacteria. These zones are expanding. Climate change is warming oceans. Warm water holds less oxygen. Excess nutrients from agricultural runoff cause algae blooms that die and decompose, consuming all oxygen in the process. Dead zones are increasing in size and number around the world. For most marine life, this is catastrophe. But for creatures like Loricifera, it's new territory to colonize. We may be creating conditions for the spread of life forms we didn't even know about 15 years ago. Life that doesn't play by the same rules as we do. And now think, if multicellular animals can live without oxygen, what else do we consider impossible that's actually just rare? In 1977, the same year hydrothermal vents were discovered, another event occurred that remained overshadowed by that discovery, but was no less strange. A research vessel working near the Bahamas discovered strange, circular marks on the bottom at a depth of about 600 meters. Perfectly circular depressions in the sand about 15 meters in diameter, surrounded by a ridge of sand. They were everywhere, hundreds, thousands, arranged in patterns that seemed almost geometric. What created them, nobody knew. They speculated underwater currents, gas emissions, some geological processes. And only in 2013, 36 years later, did scientists return with better equipment and discover the creators of these structures. Fish. Small pufferfish about 12 centimeters long. Males create these circles, working for weeks, moving sand grains with their fins, creating perfectly symmetrical nests to attract females. The more perfect the circle, the more attractive the male. These are underwater mandalas, works of art created by creatures the size of your palm, at depths where no one will see them except other fish. And we didn't know about them for 36 years, even though they were in relatively accessible waters not far from one of the most touristic regions in the world. What else is being created on the ocean floor? What structures, patterns, evidence of intelligence, or at least complex behavior lie in the darkness, unseen? In 2018, a remotely operated vehicle exploring the floor off the coast of California at a depth of about 3,000 meters filmed something the team first mistook for an artifact. A perfectly straight line of furrows on the bottom, extending beyond the range of the cameras, disappearing into darkness. They followed the line. It continued for kilometers, absolutely straight, consistent depth and width. This wasn't a trail from trawls or underwater cables. Too deep, and the pattern didn't match human activity. Eventually, they found the creator. A giant isopod. A crustacean resembling a woodlouse the size of a football, methodically crawling along the bottom, leaving behind a perfectly straight trail. Why? We don't know. Feeding? Migration? Navigation? This creature expends energy creating kilometer-long straight lines on the ocean floor, and we have no idea why. We have video. We have evidence of the behavior, but no explanation. The ocean is full of behaviors we see but don't understand. It's like watching aliens doing something clearly purposeful, but the purpose remains opaque to us. What's even more disturbing, some patterns we see on the bottom have no visible creators. In several places around the world, off the coast of Argentina, off West Africa, in the Sea of Japan, underwater footage has shown strange geometric patterns on the floor. Concentric circles, radial lines, sometimes almost mandala-like patterns. Biologists assume they're created by some organisms, but we've never seen the creation process, never observed the creature in action. We find only the result. It's like discovering crop circles underwater. We know something created them, but what, how, and why remains a mystery. And here's the most disturbing part. These patterns exist at depths we visit extremely rarely. Most were discovered by accident when an underwater vehicle passed by on the way to another target. How many more such patterns exist in places we've never looked? Let's now discuss speed. Because when we think of ocean creatures, we usually imagine them slow, drifting in the water column. And many deep-sea creatures are indeed like this, conserving energy in an environment where food is scarce. But there are exceptions that boggle the imagination. The sailfish is the fastest fish in the ocean, can reach speeds up to 110 kilometers per hour. That's faster than a cheetah on land. In water, a medium 800 times denser than air. How is this possible? Special skin structure that reduces turbulence, perfect hydrodynamic body shape, powerful muscles, and something else scientists are only beginning to understand: the ability to create microbubbles of air around the body, reducing friction to nearly zero. This is natural supercavitation, technology the military is trying to reproduce for creating ultra-fast underwater torpedoes. But the sailfish is a surface fish. What about the depths? Squid can develop incredible speeds through jet propulsion. They suck water into the mantle cavity and expel it through a siphon with enormous force, shooting themselves forward. Some species of deep-sea squid, whose exact speed has never been measured, presumably can develop speeds up to 40 to 50 kilometers per hour in short bursts at a depth of 1,000 meters in absolute darkness, using only echolocation or bioluminescence for navigation. Imagine you're a deep-sea fish drifting in darkness. Suddenly, something massive rushes past you at the speed of a car on a highway. You didn't see it coming. You only felt the change in water pressure an instant before it vanished into darkness. This is the reality of life at depth. Predators moving at speeds that seem impossible for such an environment. And there are creatures even stranger in terms of movement. Salps, barrel-shaped marine creatures that look like transparent barrels. They move by sucking water in one end and expelling it from the other, like a primitive jet engine. But here's what's striking. They can connect in chains several meters long, where each individual synchronizes its pulsations with others. The entire chain moves as a single whole, coordinated, creating an effect similar to the undulating movement of a snake. This is colonial movement, where individual organisms act as muscles of a single, larger creature. Some species of salps reproduce so quickly they can double their population in a day. When conditions are ideal, they form dense clouds extending for kilometers, consuming phytoplankton, filtering millions of liters of water. These salp blooms are visible from space, huge areas of ocean changing color due to the presence of trillions of tiny, transparent creatures. And then, as suddenly as they appeared, they disappear, die and sink to the bottom, creating a massive snowfall of organic matter that feeds deep-sea ecosystems for months. These events are unpredictable. We don't understand what triggers them, why they occur in certain places and times. We only observe the results. The ocean has rhythms, cycles, events that unfold on scales too large or too slow for human observation. We see snapshots, fragments of a larger pattern that remains invisible. It's like trying to understand a symphony by hearing one note once a year. And now let's talk about the strangest phenomenon in the ocean: vertical migration. Every evening when the sun sets, the greatest migration of animals on Earth occurs. Not horizontally, but vertically. Trillions of creatures, fish, squid, crustaceans, gelatinous organisms, rise from the depths to the surface. They spend the night feeding on plankton in the rich surface waters, and with dawn they descend back into darkness, hiding from predators that hunt by light. This happens every day in every ocean across the entire planet. The biomass participating in this migration is estimated in billions of tons. This is more than the weight of all humans on Earth, all our pets, all our livestock combined. And we discovered this only in the 1940s, when military sonar started detecting a strange false bottom in the ocean. A layer that reflected sound as if there were solid bottom there, but at depths where maps showed open water. Moreover, this false bottom moved, rose at night, descended during the day. At first they thought it was technical malfunction. Then they realized it's not bottom. It's living mass so dense it reflects sound. They called it the deep scattering layer, and it exists at depths from 200 to 1,000 meters during the day, rising almost to the surface at night. Inside this layer is unimaginable diversity of life. Lanternfish, small fish with photophores creating bioluminescent patterns for communication. There are so many of them they constitute possibly the largest biomass of any vertebrate on the planet. Krill, tiny crustaceans, the foundation of the food chain. Without them, populations of whales, seals, penguins, many fish would collapse. And countless other creatures, most of which humans rarely see. This vertical migration transports huge amounts of carbon from surface waters to the depths. Creatures feed at the surface, then descend and excrete waste at depth, or die and sink even deeper. This is called the biological pump, one of the main mechanisms by which the ocean absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Without this daily migration, CO2 concentration in the atmosphere would be significantly higher. These tiny creatures making their vertical journeys in darkness are literally regulating the planet's climate, and we barely understand how it works. What triggers the migration? Light, obviously, but how do creatures at a depth of 800 meters, where sunlight doesn't penetrate, know when night comes? Many have sensitive photoreceptors capable of detecting the tiniest changes in illumination. But some species living deeper than any light still participate in the migration, rising and descending synchronously with others. How do they know? Do they follow others? React to changes in water pressure caused by movement of the mass of organisms? Use internal biological clocks tuned to a 24-hour cycle? We don't know exactly. And here's what's disturbing. Climate change is affecting this migration. Warming surface waters, changes in plankton distribution, increasing ocean acidity, all this is changing patterns. Some species rise less, some stop migrating altogether. This disrupts food chains, affects populations of large predators, changes the biological carbon pump. We're interfering with a planetary mechanism we barely understand. The consequences are unpredictable. Now let's discuss what really makes scientists lose sleep. Places in the ocean that behave as if completely different laws of physics operate there. In the Bermuda Triangle, yes, that one, there's a real phenomenon that has nothing to do with mysticism or disappearing ships, but is much stranger from a scientific point of view. On the floor of this region are massive craters, some up to 1 kilometer in diameter and 100 meters deep. They were discovered only in 2016 during detailed mapping of the floor. What created them? Methane explosions. Beneath the ocean floor exist huge deposits of methane hydrates, ice in which water molecules form crystalline cages holding methane molecules. This is stable only at low temperatures and high pressures. When conditions change, water temperature rises or pressure falls, hydrates destabilize. Methane is released abruptly, creating a massive gas emission that explodes through the floor, creating a crater. These emissions can be so powerful they create giant bubbles of gas rising to the surface. A ship over such an emission suddenly loses buoyancy. Water saturated with gas bubbles has much lower density. The vessel can simply sink before the crew understands what's happening. This is the real explanation for some disappearances in this region. Not aliens, not temporal portals, just catastrophic degassing. But here's what makes this truly disturbing. Methane hydrates exist throughout the ocean floor. Estimates vary, but the total amount of methane locked in hydrates may exceed all known reserves of oil, coal, and natural gas combined. And these reserves are destabilizing right now. Oceans are warming. Deep waters that were stable for millennia are warming. In the Arctic, where warming is happening fastest, underwater permafrost is thawing, releasing methane that was frozen for tens of thousands of years. Methane is a greenhouse gas 25 to 80 times more powerful than CO2, depending on the time frame. A massive release of methane from ocean hydrates could accelerate global warming catastrophically. This is called the clathrate gun. The hypothesis that methane release from hydrates could trigger a runaway feedback cycle. Warming destabilizes hydrates. Methane is released. Methane causes additional warming. This destabilizes more hydrates. Some scientists believe this is exactly what caused the Permian mass extinction 252 million years ago. the greatest catastrophe in the history of life on Earth, which destroyed 96% of marine species. We're observing early stages of this process right now. On the Siberian Arctic shelf, researchers have discovered places where methane concentration in water is 100 times above normal. Gas bubbles rise to the surface constantly, creating areas where water boils from emissions. This is happening at depths of only 50 to 100 meters, shallow enough for methane to reach the atmosphere rather than dissolving in water. And we don't know how widespread this is. The Arctic is huge, most of it unexplored. We discovered these emissions by accident when a research vessel passed by. How many more such places exist? How fast is the process accelerating? We'll get answers only when we explore systematically. But this requires resources, time, technologies we don't have enough of. Meanwhile, the ocean continues to change, and not always predictably. There are regions of the ocean where water moves in strange ways, places where currents create eddies and whirlpools so powerful they affect the climate of continents. The Gulf Stream, for example. This warm ocean river carries more water than all the rivers in the world combined. About 100 million cubic meters per second. It flows from the Gulf of Mexico along the U.S. East Coast, then crosses the Atlantic to Europe. Without the Gulf Stream, Western Europe would be as cold as Alaska. London is at the same latitude as Labrador in Canada, where the average winter temperature is minus 20 degrees Celsius. But in London, it rarely drops below zero, thanks to heat carried by the ocean. And the Gulf Stream is slowing down. Since the 1950s, its speed has dropped by approximately 15%. This is connected to the melting of the Greenland ice sheet. Fresh water from melting ice reduces salinity and density of surface waters. This disrupts thermohaline circulation, the global system of ocean currents that depends on differences in temperature and salinity. If the Gulf Stream slows significantly or stops, the consequences will be dramatic. Winters in Europe will become much colder. Precipitation patterns will change. Fisheries will collapse as many species depend on warmth carried by the current. This isn't a theoretical scenario. It's happened before. About 12,900 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, a massive lake of fresh water formed from melting glaciers in North America suddenly broke through into the Atlantic. The huge volume of fresh water disrupted thermohaline circulation. Climate cooled abruptly. Europe and North America returned to nearly glacial conditions for 1,000 years. This period is called the Younger Dryas. Then just as suddenly the system recovered. Temperatures shot up in some regions by 10 degrees Celsius in a decade. This is dizzyingly fast in geological terms. We could trigger a similar event again. Only this time the system is already destabilized by our influence. Will it recover? In what time frame? We don't know. Ocean currents are the planet's air conditioning system. We depend on them much more than we realize, and we're interfering with them without having a full picture of the consequences. And beneath the ocean's surface exist currents we've learned about only recently, currents even more mysterious. Underwater rivers, dense flows of salt water flowing along the ocean floor like rivers flow on land. They're invisible from above, detectable only with special instruments. The largest known, the Black Sea River, flows from the Bosphorus into the depths of the Black Sea. If this were a terrestrial river, it would be the 6th largest in the world. It has rapids, waterfalls, floodplains. But all this happens on the seafloor, underwater. These underwater rivers transport sediments, nutrients, dissolved gases. They create specific habitats for bottom-dwelling organisms, and we know practically nothing about the ecosystems around them. In 2007, researchers discovered an underwater river in the Gulf of Mexico flowing through an underwater cave system. Water in the river was hypersaline, much saltier than the surrounding ocean water. It created a distinct boundary, a halocline, visible on video as a hazy line between two types of water. Divers exploring this system spoke of a surreal experience, swimming over the river, seeing its flow below, as if flying over a landscape. And in this hypersaline water lived creatures, bacteria adapted to extreme salinity. Some animals at the boundary, using differences in density for their advantage. Each such underwater river is a unique ecosystem. How many of them exist? Where are they all? We haven't mapped a tenth of them. Now let's talk about sound in more detail, because the ocean isn't a quiet place. It's a cacophony of sounds we're only beginning to decipher. Whales sing, we know this. Humpback whale songs are complex, can last for hours, change from year to year, as if they have cultural trends in music. But recently we discovered something stranger. Blue whales from different populations have different dialects. Whales in the North Atlantic sound different from those in the Pacific, and these dialects slowly change over time. Moreover, the frequency of their calls is lowering, not in individual whales as they age, but populations as a whole. All blue whales now sing at lower frequencies than 50 years ago. Why? Nobody knows for certain. One hypothesis: whale populations are recovering after near total decimation by whaling. More whales means more competition for acoustic space. Lower frequencies travel farther, allowing whales to communicate at greater distances in a noisier ocean. The alternative? Changes in ocean chemical composition due to acidification affect sound propagation. Sound travels differently in more acidic water. Whales may be adapting their calls unconsciously. But here's what really puzzles. There are sounds in the ocean that are clearly produced by living creatures, but we can't identify who. The 52 Hz whale, first detected in 1989. This whale produces calls at a frequency of 52 Hz, significantly higher than the typical 15 to 20 Hz of blue whales or 10 to 40 Hz of fin whales. It's been tracked for decades, migrating in the same patterns as other whales, but always alone, never observed with other whales, never receiving responses to its calls. It's been dubbed the loneliest whale in the world. The media created a romantic narrative about a whale that can't find others of its kind. But reality may be stranger. We don't know what species this is, never seen this creature visually. We know only the sound. It could be a hybrid of two whale species with unique vocalization, or a whale with deformed vocal anatomy, or, more intriguingly, a separate species we haven't yet classified. There's enough space in the ocean to hide species of large animals. History proves this. Beaked whales, a family of toothed whales, are among the most poorly studied large mammals on Earth. They spend most of their time at depth, hunting squid. Some species dive deeper than 3,000 meters, staying underwater more than 2 hours, the record among mammals. New species of beaked whales continue to be discovered. In 2002, a species was described known only from several beached individuals. In 2016, another species, identified by DNA from old museum specimens that for decades were thought to be another species. If we're still discovering new species of whales, animals up to 7 meters long, what else is hiding in the depths? And here's a story that should make you reconsider everything you think about the sizes of ocean creatures. In the 1960s, the US Navy experimented with low-frequency hydrophones to track Soviet submarines. These systems could detect sounds at distances of thousands of kilometers, and they began registering strange biological sounds. Very loud, too loud for known animals. One class of sounds they called bioduck. They sounded like a duck's quack, but underwater, at low frequencies. They were registered for decades, but the source remained unknown until 2013, when researchers finally connected them to Antarctic minke whales. But there are other sounds whose sources have never been identified. Specifically, there are recordings of sounds whose acoustic profile suggests creatures significantly larger than blue whales. How much larger is hard to say without direct observation. But if you extrapolate from known relationships between animal size and the volume and frequency of their calls, some of these sounds suggest sources possibly 40 to 50 meters long or larger. Blue whales up to 30 meters are considered the largest animals that ever lived, larger than any dinosaur. Could even larger creatures exist? Physics imposes limits. On land, an animal larger than a certain limit cannot support its own weight. Bones would break, organs would be crushed by gravity. But in water, buoyancy neutralizes gravity. Theoretically, the size limit for marine mammals is significantly higher than for terrestrial ones. The problem isn't structural support, but nutrition. A creature larger than a blue whale would need enormous quantities of food. Blue whales feed on krill, filtering tons of water. A larger creature would need even greater concentrations of prey, or an alternative feeding strategy. But if the ocean can support a blue whale, why not something slightly larger, especially in regions we rarely visit? Polar waters in winter, open ocean far from shipping routes, deep zones. Every year we discover species we didn't suspect existed. Most are small, new species of fish, invertebrates, but sometimes large ones. Megalodon, a giant shark reaching 18 meters in length, went extinct about 3.6 million years ago. We know this from fossil teeth and vertebrae. Or do we? Periodically, there are reports of unusually large sharks caught on camera or in nets. Most turn out to be just large great white sharks or whale sharks, whose sizes were exaggerated by perspective. But sometimes, the evidence is more intriguing. In 2013, off the coast of South Africa, a shark tooth was found buried in sediments dating to just 10,000 years ago, a geological instant. The tooth had a size corresponding to Megalodon. Could Megalodon, or a related species, exist somewhere in the unexplored depths? Most scientists say no. Megalodons were apex predators hunting large whales. They needed prey-rich coastal and moderately deep waters. We constantly monitor these zones for commercial fishing. Such a large predator couldn't remain undetected. But, and this is a big but, absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. Human history is full of examples of animals thought extinct that turned out to be alive. The coelacanth is the most famous example, but not the only one. And the ocean is huge, truly, inconceivably huge. Let's now descend to places where humans physically cannot survive, where pressure is so great that our understanding of biology should say nothing can live here. The Hadal Zone, depths below 6,000 meters, named after Hades, the Greek underworld. This seems fitting. Here are the ocean trenches, long, narrow cracks in Earth's crust where one tectonic plate subducts beneath another. The Mariana Trench is the most famous, but there are dozens around the world. Tonga, Kermadec, Philippines, Japan, Peru, Chile. Collectively, the Hadal Zone comprises less than 1% of the ocean floor by area, but that's still about 300,000 square kilometers, an area larger than Italy. And we've visited a tiny fraction of this space. A few point dives, a few hours of video recording, a handful of samples. What we found in these few visits absolutely overturned our understanding of life's limits. At a depth of 8,178 meters in the Mariana Trench, cameras captured a fish, not just surviving, but actively swimming, hunting. Pseudoliparus swirei, a snailfish adapted to pressure exceeding 800 atmospheres. Its body is almost entirely water and gelatinous tissues, minimizing compressibility. Bones thin, partially cartilaginous. It lives in an environment where pressure would crush a metal can into a disc the thickness of a coin in seconds. This is the deepest living fish known, and theoretically, this is close to the absolute limit where fish can exist. Why the limit? Osmotic pressure. Fish cells use a chemical compound TMAO, trimethylamine N-oxide, to counteract pressure effects on proteins. But there's a point where the TMAO concentration necessary for survival becomes toxic to the cells themselves. This limit is calculated at approximately 8,200 to 8,400 meters. Beyond this, fish cannot exist, regardless of evolutionary adaptations. But other organisms can. At the bottom of the Mariana Trench, at 10,927 meters, video showed amphipods, crustaceans the size of a large thumb. They crawled along the silt, feeding, fully functional at pressure exceeding 1,100 atmospheres. Sea cucumbers, a type of echinoderm, were observed at the same depth, slowly moving along the bottom, filtering sediment. Bacteria, of course, everywhere. Life at the microbial level seems practically indestructible. Bacteria have been discovered at depths more than 11 kilometers beneath the ocean floor. In rocks where temperature exceeds 120 degrees Celsius and pressure is unimaginable. These deep microbial communities may constitute a significant portion of Earth's biomass. Some estimates suggest that subterranean and sub-seafloor microbial life may exceed by mass all surface life combined. We live on a planet where most life exists in places we cannot look. A hidden biosphere we know about only theoretically. And now let's talk about the strangest ecosystems in the Hadal Zone. Trench lakes. At the bottom of some deep trenches exist pools of hypersaline water, so salty that it's denser than surrounding seawater. This dense liquid settles in depressions, forming distinct boundaries that look like lakes with shores on the ocean floor. These brines are often anoxic, lacking oxygen, and contain high concentrations of toxic chemicals like hydrogen sulfide and methane. For most life, they're lethal. A fish or crab swimming into the brine dies almost instantly. Their bodies are preserved in the liquid like in formaldehyde. But at the boundary between brine and normal seawater, life thrives. Bacterial mats cover the shores, extracting energy from chemical gradients. Mussels colonize the edges, filtering bacteria. Worms tunnel through sediments. These are ecosystems based not on sunlight, not on dissolved oxygen, but on pure chemistry. They show that life can adapt to conditions we considered absolutely uninhabitable. In the Gulf of Mexico exists a brine pool at a depth of about 3,300 meters, known as Jacuzzi of Despair. Water in it is 5 times saltier than the surrounding ocean, with temperature 19 degrees Celsius, significantly warmer than the surrounding 4 degrees. Methane bubbles from the bottom, creating a jacuzzi effect. Methane concentration is so high, it sometimes creates temporary flames when reacting with certain chemicals. Cold fire on the ocean floor. Creatures living around this place have adapted to extreme conditions. Some use symbiotic bacteria to detoxify chemicals. Others have modified metabolism, allowing them to exist at the boundary between 2 hostile environments. These are alien landscapes right on our planet, and we discovered them only because we accidentally pointed cameras in the right place. How many more such places exist? Every deep-sea expedition discovers new oddities. Every dive shows us something that doesn't fit our models. The ocean isn't just large. It's fundamentally diverse in ways we're only beginning to realize. Now let's discuss something that sounds like bad science fiction but is documented fact. Biofluorescence in the depths. We knew about bioluminescence, organisms producing their own light through chemical reactions. But biofluorescence is different. Organisms absorb light of one wavelength and re-emit it as light of another wavelength. At the surface, many corals fluoresce, glowing in bright colors under ultraviolet light. This is well known. But in 2014, researchers began discovering fluorescence in deep-sea sharks, fish, even sea turtles. Why fluorescence at depths where there's no light to absorb? Turns out there is light. Not sunlight, but bioluminescent light from other creatures. And some organisms evolved to absorb that blue-green bioluminescent light and re-emit it as red or orange. This creates a form of visual communication invisible to most predators. Many deep-sea creatures cannot see red light. Their eyes are adapted to the blue-green spectrum of bioluminescence. But some can, and they use this ability for secret communication or camouflage. The chain cat shark, living at depths up to 600 meters, has glowing green eyes and fluorescent patterns on its body. Under the blue light of other creatures' bioluminescence, these patterns glow brightly, possibly for recognition of other sharks of the same species, or for conspecific communication. This is a visual system we couldn't have detected without special cameras and lighting. How many more such hidden communication systems exist in the depths? Chemical communication through pheromones is probably very common, but we can barely detect it. Electrical communication. Some fish generate electrical fields for navigation and prey detection. Is it possible some use this for complex communication? Acoustic communication beyond human hearing. Infra or ultrasonic frequencies our hydrophones don't pick up. We search for life and intelligence through the prism of our own experience. But the ocean shows us again and again that life finds ways to exist and communicate that are completely alien to us. Let's now turn to one of the ocean's greatest mysteries: mass strandings. Periodically, hundreds or even thousands of marine mammals, dolphins, whales, beach themselves and die. This happens all over the world throughout recorded history. The ancient Greeks wrote about it. Aristotle mentioned mass strandings of dolphins and speculated they did this for unknown reasons, perhaps from curiosity or social compulsions. Modern science has identified several causes, some related to diseases or parasites affecting navigation, some to underwater earthquakes or changes in Earth's magnetic field, confusing navigation systems based on magnetoreception. Military sonar, especially powerful low frequency, used for detecting submarines, has definitely caused mass whale strandings. The sound is so intense it causes physical damage, hemorrhaging in brain and ears, disorientation, panic. But there are cases that don't fit any of these explanations. In 2020, about 470 pilot whales, a species of dolphin, beached themselves in Tasmania, Australia. This was one of the largest mass strandings in history. Despite heroic rescue efforts, most died. Autopsies showed no signs of disease. There were no recent seismic events. No military activity in the region. Oceanographic conditions were normal. So, why? One hypothesis: social structure. Pilot whales are extremely social animals, living in tightly bonded family groups. If one or several group members get lost or sick and head toward shore, others may follow, unwilling to leave relatives. But this doesn't explain why the initial individuals headed toward shore. Another hypothesis: navigational errors. Cetaceans use echolocation for navigation, but it works poorly in shallow water with gently sloping sandy beaches. Sound scatters, not returning clear echoes. A group may realize it's in danger only when it's too late. But pilot whales evolved for millions of years, regularly passing near shores. Why would a navigation system that worked for millennia suddenly fail? Some researchers suggest that changes in Earth's magnetic field, which occur constantly, though usually slowly, may cause anomalies confusing animals using magnetoreception. But the most disturbing possibility: the ocean is changing in ways we're not tracking. Changes in temperature, salinity, chemical composition, soundscape. All these factors can affect marine animal behavior in unpredictable ways. Mass strandings may be a symptom of a larger problem: the ocean becoming less hospitable, more disorienting for species that evolved in stable conditions for millennia. And now consider another type of mass event: algal blooms. Not all algae are harmless. There are species producing powerful neurotoxins. When they reproduce in large numbers, blooms, they can create red tides, though not all toxic blooms are red. Fish swimming through toxic blooms die en masse. Birds feeding on contaminated fish die. Marine mammals inhaling aerosols from breaking waves containing toxin get brain damage or die. Humans eating seafood from contaminated waters can experience paralysis, amnesia, even death. These blooms have always happened, but their frequency and intensity are increasing. Why? A combination of factors. Increased water temperature favors growth of some species of toxic algae. Excess nutrients from agricultural runoff fuel blooms. Changes in ocean currents concentrate algae in certain areas. In 2015 to 2016, A massive bloom of toxic algae along the western coast of North America forced fisheries to close for months. Toxin was detected in crabs, mollusks, even anchovies and sardines, species that don't usually accumulate these toxins. Sea lions and seals mass stranded on beaches showing signs of poisoning, convulsions, disorientation, aggression. Many died. This was the largest and longest-lasting toxic algal bloom event in recorded history for this region, and we cannot predict when the next one will occur, cannot prevent it, can only react when it's already begun. The ocean is becoming more unstable. Extreme events that used to happen once a century now occur once a decade or more often. This isn't natural variability. This is the result of fundamental changes in ocean chemistry and physics caused by human activity. And here's what's really frightening. We don't know where the points of no return are, which changes are reversible and which will trigger cascades impossible to stop. The term tipping point became popular in climate science, a point after which a system transitions to a new state of stability and return to the previous state becomes impossible or requires centuries. The ocean has multiple potential tipping points: collapse of thermohaline circulation, massive methane release from hydrates, complete loss of coral reefs to acidification, exceeding marine organisms' ability to adapt. We're conducting an unintentional experiment of planetary scale, and experiments by definition have uncertain outcomes. Now let's talk about what's hidden in the ice, because when we think about the ocean, we rarely think about its frozen parts. But Arctic and Antarctic waters hold secrets that may be stranger than anything in tropical depths. Beneath Arctic ice exists an entire world that's completely inaccessible most of the year. Ice several meters thick covers the ocean, blocking sunlight, creating conditions of eternal winter. And yet, life finds a way. On the lower surface of sea ice form complex structures, channels, pockets, entire labyrinths of microhabitats. Temperature there is -1.8 degrees Celsius. Salinity is extreme due to salt concentrations squeezed out when water freezes. In these ice matrices live specialized algae, bacteria, tiny crustaceans. They've adapted to life literally inside ice, in microscopic liquid channels. When ice begins to melt in spring, these organisms are released into the water, creating an explosion of primary productivity, an algal bloom that feeds the entire Arctic food chain. This is the foundation of the ecosystem. Without ice algae, there would be no krill. Without krill, no fish. Without fish, no seals, walruses, polar bears, whales. All Arctic life depends on what happens in tiny channels in ice. And this ice is disappearing. Arctic sea ice has declined by approximately 13% per decade since 1979. Summer ice that used to cover the Arctic Ocean year-round now melts almost completely by late summer. By the 2040 decade, possibly sooner, the Arctic may be virtually ice-free in summer for the first time in millions of years. What does this mean for species adapted to ice conditions? For ecosystems structured around the annual cycle of freezing and thawing? We don't know. Some species may adapt. Others will go extinct. New species migrating from the south as waters warm will take their place. The Arctic will become different, not necessarily lifeless, but fundamentally changed. And beneath the Antarctic ice sheet, even stranger things are happening. Antarctica is covered by an ice sheet averaging 2 kilometers thick. Under the weight of this ice, continental crust is pressed downward. In some places, bedrock lies below sea level, and between the ice sheet and rock exist lakes. Liquid lakes isolated from the surface by millions of tons of ice. Lake Vostok is the most famous. Approximately the size of Ontario, up to 900 meters deep, it lies beneath 4 kilometers of ice. Water there is fresh, temperature around -3 degrees Celsius. It remains liquid due to pressure and geothermal heat. This lake has been isolated from the atmosphere and surface biosphere for approximately 15 million years. What could live there? In 2012, Russian researchers drilled through the ice and reached the lake. Water samples were brought to the surface and analyzed. They contained bacteria. Thousands of species of bacteria, some known, many unknown to science. This means life exists in Lake Vostok. In complete darkness, in isolation for millions of years, at temperatures just above freezing, without contact with the rest of the biosphere. These organisms evolved independently for 15 million years. Their evolution proceeded parallel but separate from life on the surface. Some of the discovered bacteria have unique genetic sequences matching nothing in known databases. Their metabolism is based on chemicals available in the lake: iron, sulfur, possibly geothermal energy sources from volcanic activity beneath the lake. This isn't just survival. This is a thriving ecosystem in one of Earth's most isolated places. And Lake Vostok isn't unique. Over 400 subglacial lakes have been discovered beneath the Antarctic ice sheet. Most are smaller, but some are comparable in size. Each potentially contains its own unique ecosystem evolved in isolation. If life can exist there, it can exist in subsurface oceans of Jupiter's and Saturn's moons. Conditions are comparable. Liquid water beneath kilometers of ice, isolation from the surface, possible geothermal energy sources. Antarctic subglacial lakes are analogs for searching for extraterrestrial life. We're practicing here for missions to Europa and Enceladus. But here's a troubling thought. These isolated ecosystems existed for millions of years, untouched. Now we're beginning to drill into them, introducing surface bacteria, chemicals from drilling fluids, contamination. We may destroy what we're trying to study. Introduce invasive species into ecosystems that have no defenses against them. This is an ethical dilemma with no easy answers. Curiosity versus conservation, knowledge versus caution. But the decision is being made right now. Drilling continues, and one day we won't be able to undo the consequences. Now let's return to the open ocean and discuss one of its most mysterious phenomena: ocean deserts. Large stretches of tropical and subtropical oceans, especially in centers of large ocean basins, are biologically almost dead. Water is crystal clear because there's virtually no plankton in it. Sunlight penetrates to depths of tens of meters, but nothing grows. These are ocean deserts. Giant gyres where currents circulate without bringing nutrients from the depths. Without nutrients, there's no phytoplankton. Without phytoplankton, no zooplankton. Without plankton, no fish. The food chain doesn't exist. These regions occupy about 40% of the ocean's surface. Nearly half the ocean is biological desert, and they're expanding. As oceans warm, surface waters become more stably stratified. Warm water at the surface doesn't mix with cold, nutrient-rich water deeper down. Nutrients remain at depth, inaccessible to phytoplankton at the surface. Since 1993, ocean deserts have expanded by approximately 4 million square kilometers, an area larger than India. Less phytoplankton means less CO2 absorption. Phytoplankton produces about half of Earth's oxygen through photosynthesis. Decline in its abundance affects the global oxygen budget. This is another feedback loop. Warming reduces ocean productivity, which reduces CO2 absorption, which accelerates warming. But in these deserts, something strange is happening that we've only recently begun to understand. Though surface waters are almost sterile, at depths of several hundred meters, below sunlight, in what should be an even more lifeless zone, exist layers of high biological activity. These are deep chlorophyll maxima, layers where phytoplankton concentration at 100 to 200 meters depth is higher than at the surface. How is this possible without sunlight for photosynthesis? Turns out, even the faint light penetrating to this depth is enough for specialized species of phytoplankton with extremely efficient light-harvesting pigments. They live at the very edge of photosynthesis possibility, using the last photons of light. And they form the basis of a local food web at this depth. This shows that even in the most barren parts of the ocean, life finds niches, adapts to conditions that seem impossible. but it also shows that much of the ocean's productivity may be occurring at depths we don't monitor systematically. Our satellites see only the surface. They can detect phytoplankton blooms at the surface, but not these deep layers. We may be systematically underestimating the ocean's biological productivity because we measure only the visible part. This is a reminder of the fundamental problem. We can study only what we can measure, and our tools are limited. Satellites see the surface. Ships see only where they pass. Underwater vehicles see tiny patches for short times. Sensors measure specific parameters, but miss others. We're collecting pieces of a puzzle, but most of the picture remains blank. Now let me tell you about creatures that challenge our notions of what an organism is. The Portuguese man-o-war, Physalia physalis, looks like a jellyfish with a bright blue or purple gas-filled float on the surface and long tentacles trailing down for distances up to 50 meters. But it's not a jellyfish, and it's not a single organism. It's a colony. Thousands of specialized zooids, each performing a specific function: floating, feeding, defense, reproduction. Together they function as a single creature, but genetically, they're separate individuals. This poses a philosophical question. What is a creature? Is the Portuguese man-o-war one organism or 1,000? The man-o-war's tentacles contain nematocysts, explosive cells with coiled harpoons inside covered in toxin. On contact, they fire with acceleration exceeding 5 million Gs, the fastest cellular process in nature. The toxin is extremely painful for humans, sometimes lethal. But for some creatures, the Portuguese man-o-war is home. The small fish Nomius granovii lives among the tentacles, immune to the toxin. It feeds on remnants of the man-o-war's prey and receives protection from predators who won't risk approaching the dangerous tentacles. The nudibranch Glaucus atlanticus, a small sea slug, hunts Portuguese man-o-war. It swallows nematocysts without activating them and transports them to outgrowths on its body where it stores them for its own defense. It steals weapons from its prey and uses them against predators. This is a level of biological complexity and interaction that seems incredible. And this happens at the ocean's surface in relatively well-studied waters. What happens in the depths, where we almost never look? Do there exist colonial organisms the size of whales, consisting of millions of specialized zooids? Creatures we'd mistake for many separate organisms, but which actually function as one? We don't know. But given the diversity of life forms we've already discovered, it doesn't seem impossible. Now let's talk about timescales, because the ocean exists not only in space, but in time. And some of its inhabitants live on timescales difficult to comprehend. The Greenland shark, living in the cold waters of the Arctic and North Atlantic, grows approximately 1 centimeter per year. Adults reach 4 to 5 meters in length. This means an adult shark could be 400 years old. 400. In 2016, researchers used radiocarbon dating of shark eye lenses, which form at birth and aren't renewed, and determined the oldest studied individual was born around 1512. This is a shark that was alive when Leonardo da Vinci was painting the Mona Lisa, when Columbus was discovering America, when the Incas were building Machu Picchu. It swam in the ocean for over 5 centuries, slowly moving through cold, dark waters, feeding on fish and seals. What has it seen over these centuries? What changes in the ocean? Of course, it has no memory or consciousness to reflect on this, but its existence spans a period of radical change, from the pre-industrial era to the Anthropocene, from a world with 500 million people to 8 billion. It was born in an ocean that knew no plastic, knew no chemical pollution, knew no intensive industrial fishing. And if it's still alive, it's swimming in a completely different world. And deep-sea corals live even longer. Black corals growing at depths of 300 to 3,000 meters can reach ages exceeding 4,000 years. A black coral colony found off the coast of Hawaii was dated at approximately 4,265 years. This is an organism that was alive when the Egyptians were building the pyramids, when Stonehenge was newly built, when mammoths still roamed Siberia. It grew slowly, very slowly, on the ocean floor in complete darkness, filtering food particles from passing currents. And now its existence is threatened. Bottom trawling, the practice of dragging heavy nets across the ocean floor to catch fish, destroys these ancient coral communities in minutes. A colony that grew for millennia can be obliterated in one pass of a trawl. We're destroying what's older than civilization for fish we'll eat at dinner. This isn't emotional argument, it's simple fact. We're annihilating structures that cannot be restored on human timescales. Deep-sea corals grow millimeters per year. Restoring a destroyed reef would take millennia. In any foreseeable human history, they won't recover. And these reefs aren't just beautiful structures. They're ecosystem engineers creating habitat for hundreds of other species. When reefs are destroyed, entire communities of organisms disappear. But fishing economics don't account for millennia. They operate on quarterly reports, annual quotas. This is a fundamental mismatch of timescales. The ocean operates on timescales of centuries and millennia, human economics on days and years, and the ocean is losing. Let's now discuss something that seems impossible but happens constantly. The ocean is changing color, and this isn't metaphor. Satellite observations over the last 2 decades show that the ocean's color, the shade of blue or green we see from space, is systematically changing. About 56% of the ocean surface demonstrates significant color changes since 2002. Ocean color is determined by what's in the water. Pure water absorbs red light and scatters blue, so it looks blue. Water rich in phytoplankton, which contains chlorophyll, looks greener. Color change means change in the quantity and types of microscopic life in the water. Tropical waters are becoming bluer, more sterile, less productive. Polar waters are changing unpredictably. Some areas are greening due to increased phytoplankton blooms. Others are bluing due to changes in ice cover. This is visual manifestation of fundamental reorganization of the ocean biosphere. We're literally watching ecosystems change in real time from space. But what's causing these changes specifically? It's a combination of factors, many of which we don't fully understand. Water temperature affects phytoplankton metabolism. Changing circulation affects nutrient availability. Ocean acidification changes which species can thrive. Ice melting brings fresh water, changing salinity and stratification. This isn't just color change, it's a symptom of a system in transition. And at the microscopic level, changes are even more dramatic. Diatoms, single-celled algae with silica shells, historically dominated ocean phytoplankton. They're heavy due to silica shells, so when they die, they sink quickly to the bottom, transporting carbon to the depths. This is a critical part of the biological carbon pump. But in recent decades, in some regions, diatoms are being replaced by dinoflagellates and cyanobacteria, smaller, lighter organisms that sink slower or remain in surface waters longer. This means carbon circulates at the surface longer, having more chance to return to the atmosphere instead of being buried in the depths. The ocean's efficiency as a carbon sink is declining. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but constantly, measurably. And there are more alarming changes. In some coastal areas, cyanobacterial blooms that usually occur in freshwater lakes are beginning to appear in marine environments. These bacteria form dense mats on the surface, blocking sunlight for life below, consuming oxygen, producing toxins. When the bloom dies, decomposition consumes all dissolved oxygen, creating dead zones where nothing can survive. This is a state that paleontologists call green ocean, a regime that dominated Precambrian oceans billions of years ago, before the evolution of complex multicellular life. We could be unintentionally pushing the ocean backward in time to a more primitive state. This isn't an apocalyptic scenario of immediate collapse. It's slow transformation that might take decades or centuries, but the direction is disturbing. Now let's discuss something that sounds like a thriller plot: sleeping viruses. In ocean sediments, In permafrost beneath the ocean floor, in ice cores are stored ancient microorganisms. Bacteria, archaea, viruses, preserved by cold and lack of oxygen, in a state of suspended animation for tens of thousands, sometimes millions of years. When sediments are disturbed by bottom trawling, drilling, underwater landslides, or when permafrost thaws due to warming, these organisms are released. Most die immediately, unable to compete with modern organisms. But some may come to life. In 2014, French researchers revived a virus from Siberian permafrost 30,000 years old. Pithovirus sibericum, a giant virus that infects amoebas. After thawing, it was still infectious, capable of infecting and reproducing. This was a controlled experiment with a virus that doesn't infect humans or other higher organisms, but it's proof of concept. Ancient pathogens can remain viable after incredibly long periods. In Arctic and subarctic permafrost, including underwater permafrost on continental shelves, are contained remains of organisms including potentially pathogens from periods when the world was warmer and other diseases circulated. Anthrax, a bacterium forming extremely resistant spores, has been found in thawing permafrost. In 2016, an outbreak of anthrax occurred in Siberia, the first in 75 years, when an abnormally warm summer melted permafrost, exposing a frozen reindeer carcass that had died from the disease decades earlier. Spores came to life, infected living reindeer, then humans. This was a single case, quickly localized. But it's a warning. Beneath the ocean floor in Arctic permafrost may be pathogens from ancient epidemics, from species long extinct. We don't know what's there, haven't conducted systematic inventory, and this permafrost is thawing right now. This is an argument that ancient superplague will wipe out humanity. The probability that an ancient pathogen will be infectious to modern humans, active after millennia, and able to spread effectively is quite low. But it's not zero probability, and we're conducting an unintentional experiment to test it. Meanwhile, modern ocean pathogens present more immediate threat. Vibrios, bacteria including species causing cholera and other diseases, are naturally present in ocean water. Their populations are controlled by temperature, salinity, and ecological competition. But as oceans warm, areas that were too cold for vibrios are becoming hospitable. Their range is expanding toward the poles. Outbreaks of vibrio infections are being registered in regions where they were historically rare: the Baltic Sea, Alaska coast, northern Pacific. This is direct impact of climate change on human health through an ocean vector. And there are more exotic pathogens. Marine biotoxins produced by dinoflagellates and cyanobacteria are incredibly diverse. Some cause paralysis, shutting down the nervous system. Others cause amnesia, destroying short-term memory. Still others cause hallucinations. One particularly strange toxin produced by the dinoflagellate Carenia brevis can become aerosolized in sea spray. People on the beach inhale it, experiencing respiratory problems, coughing, eye irritation. For healthy people, it's temporary inconvenience, but for people with asthma or other respiratory conditions, it can be serious. And these blooms are becoming more frequent and intense. The ocean we thought boundless and unchanging turns out to be fragile and reactive. Every change we introduce, temperature, chemistry, biology, has consequences, many unforeseen. Now let's discuss the deepest mysteries. Places in the ocean that behave so strangely they defy explanation. In the South Pacific Ocean exists a region called the South Pacific Gyre, the most biologically unproductive part of the world ocean. Water is so clear that sunlight penetrates to depths over 200 meters. This sounds beautiful, but ecologically it's desert. Virtually no plankton, no fish, nothing but water and light. In 2002, researchers sampling sediments from the floor of this region at a depth of about 5,000 meters discovered something strange. Sediments contained extremely low levels of organic material, expected for such an unproductive area. But they also contained microbial cells, living bacteria. but in incredibly low concentrations, about 1,000 cells per cubic centimeter compared to millions or billions in most ocean sediments. These bacteria exist in conditions of extreme starvation. Organic matter reaching the bottom is so scarce, each cell might wait years for a molecule of food. How do they survive? Analysis showed their metabolism is slowed to nearly complete halt. They're in a state close to suspended animation, but not quite dead. Periodically, when a tiny particle of food sinks from upper waters, they activate for a brief period, metabolize it, then return to dormancy. Their reproductive cycle is estimated at hundreds or thousands of years. An individual cell may divide once in 1,000 years. This is life at the very edge of possible. Existence so slow it's almost indistinguishable from death. And here's what's really strange. These sediments were dated. Some layers are over 86 million years old, the oldest marine sediments ever studied. And bacteria in these ancient layers are still alive. Not fossils, not spores, living cells, metabolically active when provided with food. This means these organisms have existed in a state of nearly suspended animation for tens of millions of years. They were buried in sediments when dinosaurs still roamed the earth, and they're still here. This undermines our understanding of what it means to be alive. If an organism divides once in 1,000 years, is it living in any meaningful sense? Or is it something between life and death, a state for which we have no name? And in other parts of the ocean exist places with the opposite characteristic. Explosions of life so intense they're visible from space and affect global climate. Cold seeps, places where methane and hydrogen sulfide seep from the ocean floor, similar to hydrothermal vents but cold. Around them form ecosystems based on chemosynthesis, similar to those at black smokers. But cold seeps can exist for millions of years, much longer than short-lived hydrothermal vents. This makes them more stable ecosystems with higher degrees of specialization. At some cold seeps, researchers have discovered massive colonies of tube worms, clams, mussels, so dense they completely cover the floor over areas of hundreds of square meters. And beneath these colonies, in sediments, live bacteria producing methane from organic material. Methane feeds bacteria in the bodies of worms and mollusks. Animals and bacteria form a complete symbiotic cycle. This is an ecosystem that operates without energy input from outside. No sunlight, no geothermal heat. It's self-sustaining, fed by the methane cycle produced and consumed within the system. This is close to a closed ecological system, the kind theorists envision for space colonies or other planets. And it exists here, on the ocean floor, probably for millions of years. But here's the disturbing part. These cold seeps release methane into the water. Most is consumed by bacteria before it reaches the surface, but not all. In some places, methane bubbles reach the surface and enter the atmosphere. As oceans warm and methane hydrates destabilize, the number of cold seeps may increase. More methane is released. More reaches the atmosphere. This is another feedback loop in a complex system we don't fully understand. Now let's finish with a conversation about the biggest mystery. What are we missing? Every method we use to study the ocean has blind spots. Nets catch only what's large enough to get stuck in them and slow enough not to escape. Cameras see only what's illuminated by their spotlights, only those few seconds when they pass by. Hydrophones hear only sounds in certain frequency ranges, only when sensors are active. Satellites see only the surface, only what reflects light in certain ways. DNA sequencing detects only organisms whose DNA amplifies with our primers, only those numerous enough in the sample. Every method is a window showing part of reality, but between the windows are vast spaces we don't see. It's statistically guaranteed that entire categories of ocean life exist that we don't know about. Not specific species, but entire types of organisms, ecosystems, processes. This isn't speculation. The history of science is full of examples of fundamental discoveries in fields thought well studied. Nobody expected hydrothermal vents before 1977. Nobody predicted multicellular animals in oxygen-free conditions before 2007. Nobody imagined 47-meter siphonophores before 2020. Each of these discoveries was a complete surprise, and each forced reconsideration of fundamental assumptions about life. What awaits us next? What discoveries will change everything the next time? Let me tell you about a concept that will make you reconsider everything you thought about exploration boundaries. Imagine the oceanographic vessel of the future. Not 100 years from now, 20. Equipped with autonomous swarms of drones capable of mapping entire ocean trenches in weeks, AI analyzing video streams in real time, recognizing patterns the human eye would miss, genetic sequencers identifying new species right on deck. Sounds like fantasy? All this exists right now. The technologies are ready. The problem isn't capabilities. The problem is priorities. We spend more on space exploration in a year than on ocean exploration in a decade. NASA's budget is about $25 billion per year. NOAA's budget for ocean research is less than $2 billion. This isn't criticism of space exploration. It's incredibly valuable. This is observation about a paradox. We invest in studying worlds millions of kilometers away while ignoring the world right beneath our feet. Why? Partly it's psychology. Space captures imagination. Stars, planets, possibility of extraterrestrial life. It's romantic. The ocean seems familiar even if it's illusion. Partly it's media accessibility. Photos from Mars are beautiful, clear, easily shared. Deep-sea images are often dark, blurry, require context for understanding. But mostly, it's lack of awareness. Most people don't know how little we know about the ocean, don't understand the scale of the unexplored. And meanwhile, the window of opportunity is shrinking. The ocean is changing faster than we can study it. Species are going extinct before we've described them. Ecosystems are transforming, losing their baseline states. Ocean water chemistry is shifting into regimes unseen for millions of years. We're losing the baseline, understanding of what the ocean was like before massive human influence. Without this baseline, it's impossible to accurately assess changes or predict future trajectories. It's like trying to diagnose a disease in a patient without knowing what they looked like healthy. But let's focus on specifics, because among the unknown are hints. Pieces of information so strange they point to something larger. Here's what should keep you awake at night. Every year, research vessels pass through the same routes, monitor the same areas, collect data from the same depths using the same methods. And every year, they find anomalies in data that don't fit. Sonar readings suggesting massive objects moving at depths where there shouldn't be anything that large. Acoustic signatures matching no known geological or biological source. Temperature anomalies suggesting unknown underwater currents or heat sources. Most of these anomalies are dismissed as instrumental errors because the alternative requires reconsidering fundamental assumptions. And science is conservative by necessity. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. But what if some of these errors are real? In 2019, an autonomous underwater vehicle mapping the floor off the coast of California discovered a series of regular geometric structures at a depth of about 4,200 meters. Not natural formations that accidentally look geometric. Structures with angles, parallel lines, repeating patterns. When the team returned with cameras, they discovered mineral concretions, manganese nodules, naturally forming on the ocean floor, arranged in patterns that looked geometric due to underwater currents creating regular waves on the floor. Mystery solved. Nothing unusual. But here's an interesting fact. Before returning with cameras, 8 months passed. Funding, planning, vessel availability. By the time they returned, the structures could have changed. Currents could have rearranged the floor. What they saw the second time isn't necessarily the same as what was initially discovered. This isn't argument that there was an ancient civilization or anything like that. This is illustration of the problem. The ocean is dynamic. Our capabilities are limited. And the time lag between detection and confirmation means we may miss transient phenomena. What if in the ocean exist events, biological, geological, chemical, that occur sporadically, last a short time, then disappear? We'd discover them only by incredibly lucky chance. For example, bioluminescent blooms. Sometimes huge areas of ocean light up at night. Billions of dinoflagellates reacting to water movement, creating ghostly glow. This is a known phenomenon in some coastal areas. But what if similar blooms occur in the open ocean, far from land where nobody sees? Or at depths where sunlight doesn't reach, but where bioluminescence creates light shows invisible to surface observers? The only way to detect this is to accidentally be there with cameras at the right time. The probability is astronomically low. Or consider migratory patterns of deep-sea species. We know about vertical migration, the daily up and down movement. But do horizontal migrations exist at depths we don't track? Giant squid, for example. We know they exist. We've seen dead specimens washed ashore or caught in nets. A few times we've observed living ones in the wild. But where do they spend most of their time? Where do they breed? Where do their young grow to adult size? Nobody knows. This is an animal up to 13 meters long, and we don't know basic facts of its life cycle. Now extrapolate this to all deep-sea species. Thousands of creatures we know exist, but know almost nothing about their behavior, ecology, interactions. And then think about species we haven't discovered at all. Every deep-sea trawl brings new species, not occasionally, constantly. Biologists estimate discovery rates at tens of thousands of new marine life species every decade. Most are small, invertebrates, fish the size of a finger, microorganisms, but sometimes large ones. In 2012, off the coast of New Zealand, a new species of giant squid was discovered. Not a variation of a known species, a genetically distinct species reaching lengths over 10 meters. It was there all along. We just didn't know. So what else is out there waiting to be discovered? Let's talk about the most provocative possibility. I warn you, this borders on speculation, but it's based on real data and logical extrapolations. Could there exist large marine creatures using avoidance technology? Not intelligent in the sense of building civilizations, but intelligent in the sense of recognizing threats and actively avoiding them. We know many marine mammals avoid ships. Whales change course when they hear engine noise. Dolphins stay away from areas of intensive shipping. What if some deep-sea species developed similar behavior? They detect the sound of an approaching underwater vehicle and move aside before it gets close. This would explain why certain acoustic signatures are detected by hydrophones, animals at distance producing sounds, but corresponding visual confirmations are rare. It would also explain the discrepancy between biomass estimated by acoustic data and biomass discovered visually, or in nets. Something's there producing signals, but eluding direct observation. This isn't proof of giant intelligent creatures hiding from us. It's indication that our sampling methods may be biased against detecting cautious, mobile, large organisms. If you want to remain undetected in the ocean, it's not that difficult. Avoid shallow waters. Stay away from shipping routes. Be mobile. Move quickly when you sense threat. The ocean is huge. Human presence is tiny. Chances of intersection are minimal. We'd discover such a creature only by accident, if it died and washed ashore, or if it accidentally was in the wrong place when an underwater vehicle passed by. And perhaps that's exactly what's happening. Strange carcasses sometimes wash up on beaches, unidentifiable, decomposing. Media call them sea monsters. Biologists usually identify them as decomposed carcasses of whales, sharks, or large rays. Usually they're right. Decomposition makes identification difficult. What looks strange often turns out familiar on closer examination. But not always. Sometimes DNA samples don't match anything known. It's chalked up to sample contamination, DNA degradation. Perhaps that's the right explanation. Perhaps not. Truth is, we don't have a systematic program to investigate every strange carcass that washes ashore. No global database of unidentified marine remains. No coordinated effort to collect samples before complete decomposition. Most are simply washed back to sea by the tide or buried by coastal services as biohazard. Potential evidence of unknown species is lost because we don't have infrastructure to capture and analyze it. Now let's shift to something more fundamental, what the ocean does for the planet that we don't fully appreciate. Everyone knows the ocean produces oxygen through phytoplankton. About half the oxygen we breathe comes from marine algae. But the ocean also regulates climate in less obvious ways. Ocean currents transport heat from equator to poles, moderating temperatures worldwide. Without this, equatorial regions would be uninhabitability hot. Polar regions even colder. The ocean absorbs about 25% of CO2 emitted by human activity. Without this, atmospheric concentrations would be significantly higher, warming more extreme. The ocean is a buffer, stabilizer, the planet's thermostat, and we're destabilizing it. Not just through warming and acidification, but through less obvious pathways. Noise pollution from ships, sonar, seismic surveys interferes with marine mammal communication, disorients fish, stresses invertebrates. Plastic pollution isn't just visible trash, but microplastics permeating every corner of the ocean from surface to deepest trenches. These particles are ingested by organisms at all food chain levels, accumulating in tissues with consequences we're only beginning to understand. Chemical pollutants, pesticides, heavy metals, pharmaceuticals wash from land into the ocean, accumulate in sediments, affect marine life in unpredictable ways. We're introducing substances into the ocean faster than we can study their impact, conducting an unintentional experiment with unpredictable outcome. And when the ocean changes, consequences aren't limited to marine life. Billions of people depend on the ocean for food, income, livelihood. Fishery collapse means not only ecological catastrophe, but humanitarian one. Changing ocean currents affect weather patterns, precipitation, agricultural productivity on continents. Sea level rise threatens coastal cities, homes of hundreds of millions of people. The ocean isn't remote from us. We're part of its system, dependent on its health. When it suffers, we suffer. But there are reasons for hope. Not naive optimism, but grounded hope based on real possibilities. The ocean possesses remarkable capacity for recovery when given a chance. Protected marine zones, areas where fishing is restricted or prohibited, demonstrate how quickly ecosystems can restore themselves. Within years, fish populations rebound. Within decades, coral reefs regenerate, biodiversity returns. It works. We know how to do it. The problem isn't knowledge, but the will to apply it at scale. Currently, about 8% of the ocean is under some form of protection. The goal of international agreements is 30% by 2030. This is ambitious but achievable, and technological innovations are opening new possibilities. Satellite tracking can monitor illegal fishing in real time. Artificial intelligence can analyze vast data sets, identifying patterns invisible to human analysts. Autonomous drones can explore areas too dangerous or remote for crewed missions. Synthetic biology can create organisms that break down plastics, clean pollutants, restore damaged ecosystems. This isn't science fiction. These are emerging technologies, some already functioning in pilot projects. The problem again comes back to priorities, to funding, to political will to make the ocean a priority. And here's where you enter the picture. Not as an abstract concept, literally you, listening to these words. Public awareness drives political action. When people care about something, politicians respond. When people ignore something, it drops in priorities. The ocean needs advocates, people who understand its importance, recognize the urgency of threats, demand action from leaders. This doesn't require you to become a marine biologist. It requires awareness, curiosity, willingness to learn more, and share that knowledge with others. Because the greatest threat to the ocean isn't climate change itself, not pollution, not overfishing. It's indifference. The idea that the ocean is too big for human influence, too resilient for damage, too distant to matter. This idea is lethal, and it's false. We've already changed the ocean fundamentally. The question now is, what ocean will we leave to future generations? One full of life, diversity, wonder, or a depleted shadow of what it was? The choice isn't for some distant government or corporations. The choice is made by millions of individual decisions, actions, choices. What you eat, what you buy, how you travel, who you vote for, what you support. The ocean is huge, but humanity is too. When we act collectively, we can change the planet's trajectory. We've already done it once in the wrong direction. We can do it again in the right one. But the window of action is shrinking. Some changes, if we go too far, will become irreversible on timescales that matter to humanity. We're at a critical moment. The next few decades will define the ocean's future for centuries ahead. This isn't exaggeration. It's consensus among marine scientists worldwide. And now let me show you something that will change your perception of scale. Imagine a world map. Now remove all continents. Leave only ocean. Blue infinity covering the planet. This is our true world. Earth is an ocean planet with a few islands of land, and in this ocean exist ecosystems the size of continents that we've learned about only recently. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch. You've probably heard of it, but reality is stranger than media descriptions suggest. It's not a floating island of trash visible from space. It's a dispersed soup of microplastics stretching across an area 3 times the size of France. Density is high enough to alter local ecology. Organisms colonize plastic fragments. Species that normally live only in coastal zones now drift in the open ocean on plastic rafts. They're creating new ecosystems, the plastosphere, biomes that didn't exist before humans. This isn't just pollution, it's unintentional creation of new habitats. And we don't know the long-term consequences. Some species may gain advantage, spreading to regions where they couldn't survive before. Invasive species traveling on plastic rafts, colonizing new waters. Ecosystem balances disrupted in ways we're only beginning to document. And now think about what we don't see. Beneath the patches of floating debris, in the water column at depths of hundreds of meters, is even more plastic. It's not floating on the surface, it's slowly sinking, breaking into ever smaller fragments along the way. And on each fragment, a microbial community, bacteria adapting to life on plastic. Some have even evolved ability to metabolize certain polymers, breaking them down chemically. Evolution is happening in real time. Over decades, not millions of years, organisms with new metabolic pathways are emerging. This is simultaneously encouraging and disturbing. Nature adapts, but in the process, it becomes fundamentally different. Now let's talk about sounds nobody has heard. In 2021, a hydrophone network in the Indian Ocean recorded a series of pulses, regular, repeating, with intervals of exactly 17 seconds. This continued for 3 hours, then suddenly stopped. Frequency analysis matched nothing known, not geological, not anthropogenic. The pattern too regular for biological source, but too complex for mechanical. What was it? Researchers don't know. There was no publication, insufficient data for conclusions. It remained an anomaly in the archives. But think about the implications. Something in the ocean was producing structured signals for 3 hours, then fell silent, perhaps forever. If the sensor hadn't been active precisely that day, in that place, we would never know it happened. How many similar events occur constantly in regions without sensors? The ocean may be conducting conversations we don't hear, processes we don't understand, phenomena existing beyond our perception. And here's the most provocative part. What if some of these patterns repeat? What if there exist regular events, annual, seasonal, that we don't know about because we've never monitored long enough in the right places. Biological cycles unfolding on timescales of decades. Migrations happening once per generation. Blooms of organisms occurring once per century. We've been studying the ocean for a few decades with modern technology. This is an instant in geological time. A snapshot, not a film. Let's now discuss the most disturbing possibility of all. What if the ocean has already passed a tipping point, but we haven't realized it yet? Systems rarely collapse instantly. Usually there's a period when everything seems stable, but beneath the surface, the structure is crumbling. Then suddenly, the system transitions to a new state. Ecologists call this a regime shift. When an ecosystem exists in one state of stability, then rapidly transitions to another. And return is incredibly difficult, sometimes impossible. This has happened with some coral reefs. For decades they were healthy, with high coral cover. Then stress, rising temperature, pollution triggered mass bleaching. Corals died. Algae colonized the dead reef. And now, even when stressors decrease, corals don't return. Algae dominate. Fish that feed on algae maintain the new state. The ecosystem stabilized in a degraded form. The transition was rapid, a few years from healthy reef to alternative state. Recovery requires decades of active intervention, if at all possible. Almost overwhelming. But also, and this is critically important, it's an incredible opportunity. The opportunity to be the generation that changed direction, that looked at the data, saw the trajectory and said, no, not on our watch. The generation that decided the ocean's mysteries are too valuable to lose, that life in the depths deserves to exist even if we never see it, that the planet matters more than profit. History will judge us by this choice, not by our technology, not by our wealth, but by whether we decided to protect. In the darkness, at depths where sunlight never penetrated, life continues. Strange, beautiful, resilient. It survived mass extinctions, ice ages, asteroid impacts, but it may not survive indifference. So let this not be the end of the story. Let this be the turning point. The moment when humanity woke up and decided the ocean and everything living in it is worth saving. The depths are silent, but their silence is full of life. And if we listen carefully enough, long enough, with enough respect, perhaps one day they'll tell us their secrets. 11 kilometers beneath the surface, something moves in darkness. We don't know what it is. Perhaps we never will. But knowing that it's there, that the ocean is full of life, mystery, wonder, should be enough. Enough to change our priorities. Enough to protect what we don't see. Enough to pass to future generations an ocean still full of secrets waiting to be discovered. The secrets remain hidden in the depths, in the cold, in the pressure, in the darkness. But they're there, living, breathing, existing. And as long as we don't destroy them through our indifference, they'll wait. Wait for the day when humanity is wise enough to explore with respect, curious enough to ask the right questions, humble enough to admit how little we know. The ocean keeps its secrets, but not forever. One day, if we make the right choices now, we'll learn them. And when we do, the world will change again. The depths are calling. The question is whether we're ready to answer. Not with exploitation, not with destruction, but with wonder, with care, with the understanding that some mysteries are worth preserving simply because they exist. In the end, the ocean doesn't need us. It existed for billions of years before we arrived. It will exist long after we're gone. But we need it. Every breath we take, every stable climate pattern we depend on, every bit of life that makes this planet habitable, connects back to the ocean. We are not separate from it. We are part of it. And when we harm the ocean, we harm ourselves. The choice is ours. The time is now. And somewhere in the depths, in absolute darkness, life continues its ancient dance, waiting to see what will decide. The depths are silent, but their silence is full of life, and if we listen carefully enough, long enough, with enough respect, perhaps one day they'll tell us their secrets. 11 kilometers beneath the surface, something moves in darkness. We don't know what it is. Perhaps we never will. But knowing that it's there, that the ocean is full of life, mystery, wonder, should be enough. Enough to change our priorities, enough to protect what we don't see, enough to pass to future generations an ocean still full of secrets waiting to be discovered. The secrets remain hidden in the depths, in the cold, in the pressure, in the darkness. But they're there, living, breathing, existing. And as long as we don't destroy them through our indifference, they'll wait. Wait for the day when humanity is wise enough to explore with respect, curious enough to ask the right questions, humble enough to admit how little we know. The ocean keeps its secrets, but not forever. One day, if we make the right choices now, we'll learn them. And when we do, the world will change again. So tonight, as you close your eyes, remember that in the ocean, life continues. Strange, beautiful, incomprehensible life. It waits for us, patiently, in the darkness. And the choice to explore it or lose it forever is ours. Sleep well, knowing that beneath the waves, the greatest mysteries of our planet still remain. And perhaps tomorrow, we'll be one step closer to understanding them. Good night.